Hello, and welcome to today's Salesforce.com webinar, Document Automation Document Automation Tips for Increasing Your CRM ROI. Here, next we have our safe harbor statement. When making any decisions with our platform, please consider only existing functionality. For more information, visit Salesforce.com and search for Safe Harbor. So I'm Christina Major. I am a Global Program Manager here with Training and Certification at Salesforce.com. I'm joined today by Chris Berry, who is a Master Technical Instructor who has trained hundreds of developers. Today, Chris and I will show you how you can take your developer skills and your Salesforce implementation to the next level. We want you to get the most out of your investment that you've made with Salesforce.com. So to begin, you may want to ask yourself the following questions. Are your users wasting time manually generating PDF orders or anything that's template-based? Or you may want to ask yourself, are you taking advantage of the PDF and CSS support in Visualforce? Or possibly are you always on the hunt for new and innovative ideas to improve your Salesforce implementation? The Force.com platform has many features for developers to take advantage of, all of which can automate common repetitive business processes for your end users. During this webinar, we'll only be covering a small portion, mainly three, that will, again, empower you as a Force.com developer. The three areas that we'll be looking at are automating PDF document creation with Visualforce, utilizing cascading style sheets to apply your look and feel, use change set for easy deployment. But before we begin, we want to take a really quick poll. So that poll is going to open up in your interface, and if you could please participate, we'd appreciate it. So do your end users spend time manually creating template-driven documents? So if you just select an answer, we would appreciate your participation. Okay, great. We are getting a lot of answers here, and again, we really appreciate your participation. Okay, so a good number of people have answered. So again, we appreciate you sharing that with us. So Chris, let's take a closer look at some of the topics that we have mentioned.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. It looks like a lot of people, at least the most popular answer there was the yes sometimes, with people saying that a few of them saying yes a lot. Often end users will need to generate supporting documents like form letters, quotes, or any document with line items. In Salesforce, end users can easily find and work with records, but generating these supporting documents offline is typically a time-consuming task, involving lots of copying and pasting with one or more utilities. In addition, frequent repetitive tasks like this can lead to accidental errors. One-click document generation can be incorporated into your applications using custom links or buttons. Let me show you a sample of an auto-generated PDF with line items created in Visualforce. I'm just going to exit out here for a second and jump over to my web browser. So here we have a standard Salesforce page with a custom link embedded into the page. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this link, Generate PDF. This link would be created much like any other custom link associated with the object and then added to the page layout. What's happening is that this link is taking me to a Visualforce page, but this Visualforce page is being rendered as a PDF. In addition, some of the other things that are going on here, you'll see that there's an image embedded in here, and then we have some styling and formatting, which have also been included. We're able to display some line items, and then here at the end, display a total. So Christina, automated PDFs can save end users a lot of time and improve accuracy.
Thanks, Chris. Now let's learn a little bit more about visual page markup behind PDFs generated in Visualforce.
Sure thing, Christina. Visualforce pages all have a page tag. And on the right-hand side of this slide, you see a very simplified example of that markup. It defines the properties associated with the Visualforce page. One of the attributes, render as, controls the type of document generated. We can set this attribute to PDF to instruct this Visualforce page to return a PDF instead of an HTML document. An additional attribute, show header, is necessary to remove the standard Salesforce header and sidebar. We will use this because we don't want our PDF to end up looking like a Salesforce web page. Let's take a look at how this works. Once again, I'm going to exit out of my web browser, out of PowerPoint and go to my web browser. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new Visualforce page simply by editing the URL in my window. So I'm going to enter in here Apex and then my page. And what this will do is this will make a request for a Visualforce page called My Page, but it does not yet exist. Because I'm in development mode, which is a setting associated with each user account, I can click this link. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click and say Open a New Tab so that I have that open here. And then let me just click there. And this is going to generate the Visualforce page that I can begin to work on called My Page. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to get rid of the default content that exists here within this Visualforce page. In fact, let me increase the font size a little bit here to make it a little bit more readable. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some basic text here. And one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a data binding expression. In Visualforce, the data binding expression is always started with curly brace exclamation, and then in this case, I'm going to reference a global variable for this organization, and I'm going to insert the name of that organization. In other words, the name of the company that we're working with here, which is Universal Containers. Now, for the sake of time, I'm just going to type in an address here, which is my address here at Salesforce. Oops, let me put in an embedded HTML tag here. Line break, the BR is simply a line break. And then here, San Francisco, California, and then our zip code is 9411. We can also insert other either global variables like information from the organization, or we can insert data from a specific record if we wanted to. Now, if you remember, I was talking about how there are two important attributes that we need to set on this page. The first and the most important is the render as. And so I'm going to set render as equal to PDF. Now, you'll see that my Visualforce page, the default one, is already rendered, and it is an HTML page, and it's fit within the standard Salesforce header and sidebar. I'm going to remove that header and sidebar by setting show header equal to false. Okay? So now if I click on the Save button here, what's going to happen is that I'm going to end up displaying, in this case, here we have Universal Containers is the name of the organization, and then the address is being displayed below there. So let me jump back to here. In our developer learning path, we have a lab exercise where we create a PDF form letter similar to the one that we're showing here in the screenshot.
Great, Chris. That sounds really interesting. Now let's take a look at a complementary technology, cascading style sheets. But before that, let's take another quick poll to see if people are already taking advantage of these features that we've mentioned. So how many of you are already using Visualforce pages to automate PDF generation? So you should see, again, that same poll in your interface. Okay, so is that new question up there? All right, so Chris, are you seeing the results?
Yeah, I am. And so what came back was that really the majority of the answers were, I would say 40% or probably more like 45% didn't know this feature existed, and then another 45% knew about it but haven't utilized it yet, and then the final group, the much smaller group, about 10%, said we're already using this feature. So that sounds good in the sense that a lot of you out there are new to this, and hopefully you're picking up something new that you can run with. So let's take a look at something that makes this a little bit more valuable, which is cascading style sheets, which is frequently referred to as CSS. It's an internet standard for formatting web documents. In a cascading style sheet, you can declare a class which would contain styling instructions for any document which utilizes it. Examples of types of formatting supported by cascading style sheets include fonts, backgrounds, margins, borders, and alignment. In addition to custom classes, you can override the styling for standard HTML components too. In fact, Salesforce.com uses cascading style sheets for the standard Salesforce look and feel. The Visualforce Developer's Guide, which by the way is downloadable from developerforce.com, contains instructions for how to access and download the standard Salesforce CSS files. Let's create a cascading style sheet. All right, I'm going to once again exit out, and then this time I'm going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to create a new text file here. And the name of this text file is going to be mycss.css. Okay. In this text file, what I'm going to do, and I'm going to open this up in TextPad, which is my favorite text editor, I'm going to create a class. Now, a class is always identified by a dot in CSS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter in my class here, and then much like a class actually in Apex, the beginning and end will be demarcated by curly braces. Inside the class, here's where I'd specify different attributes or properties associated with my class. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a few of these, like color, and I'm going to set this equal to the hexadecimal code for red, which is the FF, and then 0000, which is really at the end of the day an RGB code. And then font family, I'm going to set this equal to Courier. And so we're going to change the displayed font from Times New Roman. And then the font size, I'm going to increase the font size by setting the font size property equal to 16 pixels. Okay. So here's my CSS file in which I've defined the class, and I've defined those three properties. Now, I'm going to go ahead and close this and go back to my Visualforce page. And my Visualforce page needs to be able to reference the class that I just created. I'm going to utilize something called a output panel. In Visualforce, an output panel can generate a span or a div tag. I'm going to, here we go, use the autocomplete and do the output panel like so. And then through the magic of copy and paste, let's see here, I'm going to put that like that. Excuse me for a second here while I complete this. And there we go. So what's an output panel? Like I said, it generates a div or a span, and a div or span is just an arbitrary area of a web page in which you can, for instance, reference via something else. Like, for instance, one of the things that we do in class is we do partial page refreshes where we, based on a user event within the web browser, we re-render a portion of the page demarcated by the output panel. But the reason we're going to use it here is with the output panel, I can apply an attribute called a style class. And the style class is where I can reference my CSS class that I created, which was called my class. Now, when I click on Save here, one of the things that you'll notice is that the styles have not yet been applied. And the reason is the class cannot be found. The CSS file still exists on my my local hard drive. And so that's going to bring us to our next topic. Excuse me while I pop over here. One thing to mention is, in addition to the output panel, we cover a lot of other important Visualforce tags and attributes in our developer training classes.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Now let's take a look at another Force.com feature, static resources, which makes this all possible. But before we do that, let's just take one last poll to get a little bit more information. So how could you envision utilizing automated document generation? Okay, so there's a few different options there. Good participation. We appreciate that. Okay, we'll give you a few more seconds to get your answer in. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, some of you are selecting other. It'd be interesting if you could, through the chat facility, if you could type in just some ideas for other types of documents that you might utilize with this. To give you an idea of the types of numbers that we're getting back, there's 18% saying form letters and 12 with quotes or other lists. 44% are saying both. 2% are saying neither. That's comforting. And then for other types of documents, there's 24%. So probably, that probably represents a combination of everything. But a lot of you have some ideas for other things. About a quarter of you have some other ideas for how to utilize this. So. Let's see here.
Okay, so, well, yeah, I think the next thing is that we just go now through and show them static resources, which, again, makes this all possible.
All right. Static resources are a feature of the Force.com platform that provide an optimized storage cache for supporting files referenced from Visualforce pages. Examples of the types of files that can be uploaded to static resources are image files, like a JPEG or a GIF file, Flash, which is in the format of a SWIFT file, an SWF shockwave, and cascading style sheets. The global variable $resource is an easy way to include files stored in static resources into Visualforce pages. Static resources also support a mechanism to store files in an archive, like a zip file format, and reference the files contained within that archive. So let me show you how we can take the CSS file that I created and upload it to static resources within my org so that it can then be referenceable. Let's see here. Let's go to, so here within my web browser, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Setup area. And under Develop, there is a link for static resources. So I'm going to click on Static Resources. And this is where I can define a new static resource. So I'm going to click on the New button here. And what it's going to do is it's going to prompt me for the name of the static resource. In this case, here what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer to this as, how about my CSS, okay? And then I'm going to click on the Browse button, and I'm going to select from my desktop the CSS file that I created. Now, the name of the CSS file or the file that you're uploading does not need to match the name of the static resource. But the name of the static resource is important because when we're referring to this resource, we're going to need to know the name, the one that I'm highlighting right now, as opposed to the document which we're uploading. It really doesn't matter what the name of that document is. So I'm going to click on the Save button here to upload that document into static resources. Now it's available and referenceable from my Visualforce page. So I'm going to go back here to my Visualforce page, and I'm going to add a new tag. The name of that new tag is Apex. All Visualforce components start with Apex. And then Style Sheet. And within this tag, what I'm going to do is there's a value attribute. And the value attribute is how I can reference the resource that I just uploaded. So if I click here, the $resource is the global variable to refer to those static resources. And then here, remember, I called it my CSS. So by making this edit to my page and now including the CSS into my page, what's going to happen when I click the Save button is that my styling will finally be applied to my document. So just jumping back to the CSS file, just to remind you, remember that we changed the color of the text to red. We changed the font from the default to Courier, and then we increased only slightly the font size to 16. All right. In addition, in our training course, in addition to using static resources for including CSS files, we also complete an exercise that incorporates a Flash Swift file. So we actually get an opportunity to work with a Flash control within a Visualforce page.
Wow, Chris, that sounds like lots of fun. There is one last feature that we would like to see, change sets, which is a new feature in beta release. So if you could take us through that, that would be great.
Sure. So change sets are a beta release feature which enables the migration of metadata, that is configuration definitions from a sandbox to another sandbox, a sandbox to production, or vice versa. This is my one cool piece of animation here that I have in my PowerPoint presentation, and there it was. And so here we are showing that the My Page and the My CSS static resource can be migrated or copied over to the production org and then deployed to that environment. Many components can be migrated beyond the Visualforce page and the static resource shown above, including things like custom objects, page layouts, Apex classes and triggers, applications, tabs, reports, workflow rules, email templates, dashboards, and many more. In fact, when I show this to you, I'll show you the pick list of all the available metadata types that we can copy over. The great thing about this new beta release feature is that it's a fully software as a service function. In other words, a feature that is run entirely from the setup menu. Until now, metadata had to be migrated using client-based tools like the Force.com migration tool or the Force.com IDE. This is another important step towards delivering on the goal of the end of software. Let me exit out here back to my web browser, and I'm going to navigate to the deploy area, which is where we can work with change sets. Now, in my case, just so you know, I've pre-created a connection from my sandbox environment to the production environment. And so here's the established connection, which needs to be affirmed on both sides. The outbound change set is something that I need to create right now, though, and we'll wait a second for that to launch. Okay, as you can see, I've been practicing. I'm going to create a new outbound change set, which is a collection of items that I would like to upload to a target environment. And so this is going to be called about my change set. Okay. Keeping with my naming conventions. I'm going to click on the Save button. Now I've really just created the container or the group. You'll see that my change set doesn't contain any items yet, though. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Add button here to define or to add my Visualforce page and my static resource to this change set. Remember I said that I was going to show you all the different things that are supported by utilizing change sets? Well, here's that full list of all the different metadata components that are available. If you're familiar with doing administration or development within our platform, you should recognize a lot of those different names. I'm going to select my static resource here. It doesn't really matter what order I do this in, but I'm going to select my CSS and add it to the change set. And then I'm going to add in my Visualforce page. And so from this drop-down list, here's my Visualforce page, and I'm going to select my page. All right, so now I have defined these two components as being members of the change set. There's an upload button that I can now utilize to upload these files to my target org, which in my case would have been production. And I just remembered that I need to do something else. The thing that I need to do is right now, as you're all aware, we are currently mid-cycle in the upgrade from 17.0, which is Winter 10, to 18.0, which is Spring 10. And because my sandbox is currently in Spring 10, you'll notice that the default version that it assigned was 18.0. Now my production environment is currently at Winter 10, and that means that it's running at 17.0, and therefore it does not support deploying version 18 components to it. That's not a big deal, though. All I need to do is to go to the version settings associated with my Visualforce page and then associate it with the previous version, Winter 10, so that I don't run into that problem. Now that I've done that, I can go back to my outbound change set, which I've already created. And I can now click on the upload button. I identify what's the target org that I'm going to be deploying to. Notice that the platform version is 17, and I'm going to click on the upload button. Now it's going to show me sort of a dialog saying here it's currently in progress, but as soon as this succeeds, and there we go, your change set was successfully uploaded, I can now go out to my production org and take a look at what's been delivered. So it's a very slight change that just occurred here, but over here you'll notice the red bar across the top indicating the sandbox. And in this last tab here, this is my production environment. I'm going to navigate to the same place, but instead of being an outbound change set, this is an inbound change set. So I'm going to click on the menu item here, Inbound Change Sets. Okay, it is here that I see my change set has been delivered to my target production org. And so one of the things I can do is I can click on this, and it says the change set is unavailable. Basically, there's a 30-minute, it doesn't immediately become available, but there's a 30-minute time period that we need to wait. Now, much like having a cake in the oven on a Julia Childs show, we also have a project here just to show you what a completed one would look like. And so assuming that I had, if we're 30 minutes into the future, I can now click on the deploy button here to deploy these items to my production org. So it pops up a little screen here just showing me that it's deploying, and then success. So now we can go out to our Visualforce page in our production environment, and our end users can utilize that. Deployment is important and a complex part of a large Force.com implementation. In developer training, we have a chapter devoted to sandboxes, metadata, and the deployment process, and best practices. Change sets are currently in beta release, so we don't cover them yet in class, but we will once the feature becomes generally available.
Great, Chris. Thank you so much for sharing that new feature with us. So today we've seen a few ways to help you become a more productive developer and also earn some praise from your end users. These topics, creating PDFs with Visualforce, deployment, and many others are covered in great detail, as Chris mentioned, in 2 of our developer training courses specifically. The first one is building applications using Force.com in Visualforce, which is also known as our Dev 401 course. The second one is Apex and Visualforce Controllers, which is also known as the Dev 501 course. In addition, we have 2 new, very exciting courses that we now offer. Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming using Apex, which is also known as Dev 531, and Force.com Integrations, also known as Dev 502. These are referenced here on the slide in the presentation. So what's next for you? So we'd encourage you to think about how you are going to keep building up those skills that you'll need to get the most out of the Force.com platform. With a small investment up front, you can learn to take full advantage of the Force.com implementation. There are a number of online resources also referenced here in the presentation. We would really highly encourage you to take advantage of those resources and also consider these options when planning out your user training program. So we will definitely be taking some questions here in a moment, and you can just use your interface like some of you did in the beginning. Use the interface to ask questions. But to help you get started on your developer path, we want to offer a promotion to webinar attendees. For a limited time only, we'll take 10% off of any public course. And if you attend class by March 31st, 2010, we'll throw in an extra $100 gift card. You can see our class dates and locations on our website, or you can also call to talk to one of our training specialists by calling 877-TRAIN-10, also referenced here on that phone number's there on that presentation slide, so if you want to make a note of it. So we really appreciate your time today. We're happy to take any questions. Please, again, use the interface to ask questions, and we'll answer as many as we can now. If we don't get to your question during this webinar, we'll follow up individually to get every question answered. This session is also being recorded so you can review it later or share it with a colleague. So thank you again for your time. There should be also a survey that pops up in your interface as well. So please first make sure that you ask any questions that you may have, and we'll get to as many as we can. And then, again, if you see the survey, please fill out that survey. We'd really appreciate it.
Hey, Christina, the survey will be displayed at the end of the webinar. So I can take some questions right now. And there are some questions online, and I'm going to go through a few of these. So can the end user modify the PDF? The modification of the once you have a PDF, the end user could then click on the Save button to save it to their local hard drive. And if they had something like Adobe Acrobat, I think Adobe Acrobat supports things like adding comments or notes to a PDF, but not directly editing it. But maybe there are tools out there for editing it. The thing to keep in mind about this is that if you have a Power admin or a Power user who is comfortable with editing the Visualforce, then they could do something like that. But it's a pretty technical thing that working on Visualforce pages. That being said, the data is being inserted into the document. So we can use what are essentially merge fields. In my example, I simply showed a global variable, but you could definitely include record data within that. There's a question, why did only the top line change? Why not all 3 lines? Good question. So just to show you, there's a nuance here with the output panel. And you'll see here that, in fact, maybe I need to do a little bit more effective indentation. But the organization name that is the one that we applied the styling to. The reason it was only applied there is because that is what is contained within the output panel and is only the output panel to which we've applied the style class. Just to show you what would happen if I expanded this to then cover everything else and clicked on the Save, you'll see that all of the text is updated. So it's all about where we demarcate. Will this replace creating a package and uploading it to the App Exchange, then bring it down to another environment? Yeah, this is this is using the at the end of the day, this is using our metadata API, but it's doing it through a web-based format, which does not require you to have client-based tools. So the technique of uploading a package and then downloading it via via the App Exchange is kind of something that we're the App Exchange and the managed packages are something that is going forward, I think. Actually, this is a pretty forward-looking statement. Now I realize I'm getting in trouble. But it's my understanding that this would be sort of the focus for doing the migration of metadata in the future. Now, I'm sure we'll still continue to support the client-based tools like the Force.com migration tool and the Force.com IDE, but this is definitely it's an alternative to using that package-based format. Will the Visual Force page show up in the dependencies or vice versa? Definitely. So that's one of the checks that occurs is to take a look at the dependencies. And just jumping over here, taking a look at my, here's my outbound change set. In my case, I've already uploaded it, but let's see. I think I have another one out here that maybe we can view there's a view dependency. So let's take a look at practice 3. And this doesn't have anything in it, but what I'm going to do is, just for the sake of a demo, I'm going to upload my Visual Force page without the referenced, my page, here we go, without the referenced CSS file. So now when I view dependencies, I might have done that a little bit too quickly. I apologize for doing that. But I clicked on the View Dependencies button, and so here you see that my page is referencing my CSS, the static resource. So it does check, definitely does check dependencies. Is it okay to have both a sandbox window open at the same time as a production browser window? Yeah, definitely. I think in my experience, what I've found, especially because I do, as a trainer, I am logged into multiple orgs doing demos frequently, is that as long as you're going to something like, in my case, I'm going to CS3, and my production org, I believe, is NA1, as long as you're going to different domain names, then you're fine. I think the trouble that I've experienced, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but if I attempt to log into two different orgs that are both, for instance, in, let's say, CS3, so if you're one of our larger or medium-sized customers that has multiple sandboxes, you could have two different sandbox orgs both on the same instance. That's where I've kind of run into problems where it says, you click on something and it says, wait a minute, you're not authorized to do that, because it gets a little confused. But in terms of production and sandboxes, like I said, they are two separate domains, and therefore you shouldn't run into any issues. Let's see.
Chris, let's just take maybe one or two more questions. And
okay.
Then, for those of you, if we didn't get to your question, Chris will get a list of your questions, and we will follow up after the webinar. Some of you are also asking, where will you be able to access the webinar? From our training and certification page, there should be a link there, and I do believe the GoToWebinar will also send you a notice to say this was recorded. But either way, you can definitely go to the training and certification page on our website, and you will see it referenced there.
Okay, I'm going to do two questions here. So could the PDF custom link be used on a user's web page for completion and submission to Salesforce.com to create a record? Actually, I think what let me try and rephrase what I think you're attempting to do, which is one of the things we can do is to associate the generated PDF document as an attachment associated with a record. Now, an attachment in of itself is a sort of record. At least I know within Apex we treat it the same way when we're writing our Apex code. Now, this technique involves somebody creating a Visual Force controller and doing that. So that's that solution would require a visual force controller written in Apex. And then speaking of Apex, there's another question about test code coverage. And definitely test code coverage, all those rules still apply. So during the uploading process, it's going to then check to see when it runs your unit tests, do they meet the requirement of 75% of the lines covered and all triggers executed and no uncaught exceptions. So those rules will apply during the deploy process. When it is done, I'm not sure exactly whether it occurs when we're copying it over or when we actually, in the production org, click on that deploy. I'm not sure exactly where that test will occur, but I can guarantee you it will occur. This is by no means a backdoor for avoiding the test coverage requirements of Apex. Christina, I think that's it for time. Is that right?
Yes, that is.
Okay.
So again, thank you for your time, and for those of you, if we did not get to your question, I promise that you will be followed up with, and also this recording will be on our training certification page within within a week or so. Okay, thanks again.
Thank you all for attending.